Welcome to the 13th episode of the MMA Podcast. No technical difficulties this week, hopefully, like we did last week. We also have two huge guests coming on. We have former Strikeforce champion Miesha Tate, and in just a couple of minutes, we have UFC veteran Tom Lawlor on. Definitely looking forward to asking him some questions. We also have a lot to break down in the UFC world. A lot of injuries, unfortunately, a few fight schedulings, retirement or two, a couple people talking a little bit of trash. What else do we got? Yeah, UFC 153 just got completely rescheduled, but let's switch up the intro first.
We did it, mama. We did it. We did it for the love of the game. We did it, mama. We did it. I did it for. Yeah. We did it, mama. We did it. This game will never be the same. We did it, mama. We did it. I did it for.
And big thanks to Smoke Serpent, who does that intro. Thanks to Miesha Tate and Tom Lawlor, who are both coming on. You can follow Tom at Filthy Tom Lawlor. Follow Miesha Tate on Twitter. Shout out to our sponsors, MMA Mental. We had the host of MMA Mental, Ray, on last week. That was a lot of fun. The MMA Playground, the best forum on the internet in the mixed martial arts world. And we're also brought to you by Mr. Spriggs Barbecue. And we also want to thank our listeners. Call in at 646-378-1046 or tweet us at the MMA Podcast. If you tweet us any questions while we have Tom or Miesha on, try and ask them those questions. And obviously you can visit us, themmapodcast.com. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, remember when you said that, we hope to not have any technical difficulties this week as opposed to last week? Remember that?
I do remember that.
Best way to ensure good luck is knock on Tom Lawlor's wood.
Knock on Tom Lawlor's wood. And if you know what we're talking about, great. If you don't know what we're talking about, probably best to not even broach that subject on Google, or else you might be in line.
You might go blind.
Yeah, you might end up seeing a couple things you didn't want to see. But looking forward to having Tom Lawlor. I told him we'd give him a call in a couple of minutes. But how's your Wednesday going, Chris?
Fucking great now, man. Fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm getting adjusted to a 9 to 5 job every day, which is never easy, but I'm really enjoying Chicago, my new layout. And we say it all the time. People don't really tweet us that much while we're going live. Our recorded listens are a lot higher than our live listens. And if you're listening to a recorded version now, we air every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And whether you would like to call in or tweet us, we do a pretty good job answering calls and reading off tweets. So definitely take advantage of that. We really want you to take advantage of us, mainly because I pay a pretty penny to do these live, and I feel like if we don't have that much live listening support, then I'm going to start paying for this damn show. No, sorry, I get a little abusive with our listeners a lot of the time.
Hey guys, you should go check out our last episode, because there were technical difficulties, and can I tell a story about spaghetti nipples?
We're calling Tom in about 30 seconds, so that might need to wait, but it involves me getting irate at Blog Talk Radio, going on their front page, and literally calling into random shows to abuse, just to say, hey, great show, I hate Blog Talk Radio, and just started talking all sorts of shit about Blog Talk Radio. It was a long night. I was a little drunk, admittedly. I guess without any further ado, he's really honestly one of the most loved fighters in the UFC. And we're calling him up right.
Hello.
Tom?
Yes.
Hey, it's Jake with the MMA Podcast. We're on the air. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for coming on. We're really honored. I actually just mentioned a few seconds ago you're one of the most liked guys in the UFC, and I guess that kind of segues into the first question that I had for you. You know, you're known for your really, really colorful way and interest. My favorite was you dressing up like the Just Bleed guy. Chris's is the Harold Howard impression. What's your personal favorite of all the impressions you've done so far in the UFC?
So far in the UFC, my favorite impression would be the one that I did of a capable fighter. And I've done that 4 times so far. The rest of the time, not so capable, but...
So before you were in the UFC, would you make impressions during the weigh-ins and the entrances and all that, or is this something you started doing once you signed up with the big show?
I used to do entrances. It's kind of hard because at the weigh-ins for local shows, I mean, I'm not really sure how many people even watch the UFC weigh-ins, to be honest, but it at least gets put on the internet at some point. For local shows, most of the time, no one cares. It's like family members don't even show up. So I would kind of stick strictly to the walkouts prior to my UFC career. And there were some pretty good ones. My favorite one of all time, and this includes the UFC ones that I've done, was one to New Kids on the Block, Hanging Tough. And I had a full, jean outfit ripped up. I had a full headset on. I did the New Kids dance all the way around the ring. And, that one holds a special place dear to my heart.
Oh, my gosh. I would love to see a reprise of that in the UFC. That sounds really amazing.
Yeah, I've thought about it. That would be the one that I would rehash, simply due to the fact that I can't find a video of the original. So I'm thinking maybe I'll have to do that again. But there's so many ideas I have running through my head, and now a lot of people they look forward to the walkouts probably more so than my fights, and that includes the people that are in my entourage or in my corner. So they get on me about it, about doing something new and exciting each time. So we'll see if that one comes up again or if I think up something new.
I don't know. That statement may have been true up until your last fight, but after you knocked out Jason McDonald in 50 seconds, I'm pretty sure you have a lot of people really looking forward toward your next fight.
Yeah, I'm one of them. I was really looking forward to getting back in there right off the bat and hopefully getting a short notice fight over the summer. There was a couple fights I tried to actually get on, and then there was an instance where I got called for a last-minute fight, and by the time I had gotten back to accept the fight, they had already switched and found a new opponent. So, not even this upcoming fight, but I've been looking forward to getting back in the cage ever since that last fight over Jason McDonald.
Definitely. So I'm sure you get a bunch of suggestions from UFC fans about which impression you should do next. How often do fans come up to you or tweet you and give out a new idea for an impression you should do next?
I'd say that about 1 out of every 5 Twitter messages I get is somebody saying what I should do on my next entrance. And,
wow.
To be honest, I don't take most of it into consideration.
But,
I have to feel it. That's the problem. These aren't something that you could just go, you can't just go with the flow. I have to really feel, I have to get into the character. I'm like a method actor, I have to really find out what makes these people tick. So it has to be somebody that I'm interested in and somebody that I want to emulate.
What is the best fan suggestion you've gotten yet?
The best one that I've gotten yet? That's a very good question. I get somebody actually today said I should do Keith Hackney, but that's not the best one. That's just the most recent one. The best one, it's tough. To be honest, I don't know. I've mentioned in the past doing a Hoist Gracie full Gracie train, and I've had some people come up with like ideas on how to do that, and those are probably the best ones that I've gotten. But or Joe-san with the cross or Chemo with the cross. A lot of people want to see that, but I don't know if I want to open up that can of worms.
You'd be able to throw a shoe across the ring if you were Joe-san?
Yeah, I would throw a shoe and then possibly be convicted of rape immediately after as well. Hey, it happened, It's not, I'm not making it up. I'm not slandering his name, am I? I mean, he's in jail for it.
I know, man. But quick question about your outfits and your characters. Does Seth Petroselli help you with any of this? Are you guys like brainstorming at a table playing cards? How does that work?
No. To be honest, Seth is like, I don't know how to say this. I guess the best way to describe it would be like a dullard or adult when it comes to these things. He's not like the brainstorming kind of guy. His ideas they like appeal to the lowest common denominator. He's kind of like a toilet humor kind of guy. I'm a little more cerebral than that. So Seth might have a little bit of say in things, but for the most part, it's myself and there's a few other people there's a guy named Mike Lee who's helped me a lot with this stuff, and Seth's kind of like on the low end of the totem pole as far as it goes. Now, to his credit, for the last walkout, he sent me a message about, I don't know, a couple months beforehand and said, Tom, look, I don't care what it is, I'm ready to go all out. He's like, I've backed out on some stuff in the past, but this time I don't care what it takes. I'll dress up like a woman. I'll be in full drag. I'll get breast implants, whatever it takes. I'm in 100%. So, that to his credit, he did kind of man up in that sense.
Tom, you may need to think about a career in stand-up comedy whenever you're done fighting and beating people up, because you're kind of a funny guy.
Yeah, to be honest, that's something I've thought about, but it's something that I would never do. I am absolutely terrified of that prospect.
Just making strangers laugh. I hear you, man. I hear you. I've heard a couple times, people say I should do that, but I'm like, this doesn't really appeal to me. Moving on past our perspective stand-up comedy careers, I wanted to kind of jump right into your fighting career, and I'm sure you get a lot of questions about The Ultimate Fighter, so I'm just going to skip past that, and let's go back a little bit further. You wrestled for University of Central Florida at 235 pounds, and you were a champ 3 of those years, and you were, I think, third for your freshman year. I just kind of wanted to get your take on your wrestling background, because I, for one, didn't know that you had one until I read this.
Yeah, I wrestled in high school. I kind of got a late start compared to a lot of guys that, do some wrestling throughout their lives. A lot of guys start real young. I started when I began high school, and I don't think I'd ever actually seen a wrestling match up until high school. I was a big pro wrestling fan when I was a kid. I played baseball my whole life, and when I got to high school, I was actually too fat to play like football, so I never did that until high school either. So high school was kind of like an eye-opening experience for me as far as sports go. And I started wrestling then. I went to college and joined like a wrestling club that was it's a league called the NCAA. The majority of my wrestling career was spent, wrestling guys at the D1 level, NCAA programs. I, was lucky enough and fortunate enough to beat guys that were NCAA All-Americans, NCAA Division I qualifiers. So I had a good career and won that league's titles for 3 years. So, without that, I doubt I'd be where I am today, for sure,
Well,
wrestling, I think, is probably the best base, regardless of if you fight like a wrestler. It's, physically demanding sport, mentally demanding, and I think it helps the most for MMA.
I agree, man. I agree. It's definitely the most important puzzle. And, you were 235 pounds, then cut to The Ultimate Fighter, and you were a 205 pounder, and you were in pretty good shape for that, man. You were pretty jacked for that season of The Ultimate Fighter, and then you decided to make the drop down to 185, and
Chris, I think we may have lost him. You there, man?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. I thought I lost you too, but I'm here. Sorry about that. There's a big commotion going on downstairs from my house. There's a huge college party, and those kids might be interfering with the signal somehow.
Oh, those bastards.
Yeah, I hear what you said. I really didn't, I kind of made the call to go down to 185. I think my management actually told Joe Silva after the Ultimate Fighter that I wanted to fight at 185, and after I was able to defeat Kyle Kingsbury in my one and only 205 fight. So, I am undefeated at 205 pounds in the UFC. Not many people can say that.
Not even John
to drop
Jones.
down to 85. I'm sorry?
John Jones can't even say that.
No, that's true. I don't have a loss to Matt Hamill on my record at 205. I'm undefeated. My first fight with UFC was 4 years ago, and I'm undefeated since then at 205.
So yeah, you wrestled at University of Central Florida, which I actually grew up in Florida. So a bunch of my buddies are all Gold Knights. Did I saw you grew up in the New England area. What brought you down to Florida exactly?
I moved down there when I was like 12. So I had been living down there already. I went to high school down there, and then I went to Orlando. But I've been back living in New England for the past year. So I'm not sure who I should claim. I'm not sure if I should claim being a Floridian or being a New Englander. I think it's kind of cool. Like if I'm up in New England, I say I'm from Florida, but if I'm down there, I say I'm from New England. So.
Yeah, I actually lived my entire life in Florida and just moved to Chicago about a month or two ago, and there are a lot of Floridians up here, but for the most part, I kind of try and avoid saying I'm from Florida. It isn't exactly my proudest trait.
Yeah, it gets a lot of bad connotations now, especially with Casey Anthony and Trayvon Martian and some of the other stuff that goes on in Florida.
Yeah. So when you were wrestling at UCF, did you have any MMA aspirations, or what kind of transitioned you over from wrestling to actually throwing punches?
Well, I actually had my first fight, and I guess it's on my record as like an amateur fight, but back then there was no, it wasn't even like at the point where there was amateur or professional. It was just professional or whatever. I had my first fight in 2003, and then I didn't train again. I mean, I continued to wrestle, but I didn't train really in mixed martial arts for another 4 or 5 years. And after my eligibility was up for wrestling, I did a short stint in like independent pro wrestling, and I really had aspirations of being a professional wrestler, more so than an MMA fighter. And when that didn't work out quite as how I had wanted it to, then I had to get a job. I began teaching high school. A branch of American Top Team opened up right by my house, and I joined up at the gym, and, the rest is, as they say, history. Not very important history, but it's history nonetheless.
Yeah, man, you choked out CB Dollar milestone card at UFC 100, and you seemed pretty goddamn psyched after that victory, and I was too, because CB's just one of those guys that, I've always seen him as kind of like the jock type and doesn't have much of a personality, and you went in there and just tapped him out real quick. Cards ever, man. How's that?
I'm sorry? I heard the question about CB, but I didn't hear the end of it.
Yeah, I'll take over for him. I think he's actually about to go and switch microphones now. Yeah, he was asking about you fighting on UFC 100, really big milestone card, and you were obviously really psyched up. What was that like, fighting on maybe the biggest card in UFC history and getting a really impressive win at it, getting a submission less than 1 minute into the fight?
Oh yeah, that was I put it up there like a highlight of my life. If we had to take my life and create a TV series, a 12-episode TV series, that would probably be one of the episodes. So that was definitely a milestone in my life, in my career. I was ecstatic. Going into that fight, I was making 8-8. So, you win, you walk out with $16,000 plus sponsorships, and then able to get the submission of the night bonus on the biggest show up to that date in UFC history was just it was like a dream come true. I didn't know what to do. And I almost threw up, actually, in the locker room when they announced the fight bonuses. But,
wow.
I decided I kept the throwing up off till a few hours later after I went out drinking.
So that win definitely goes on one of the top moments. Would giving an interview while you once got a colonic also be one of those moments?
I'm not sure that would make if we go back to this TV series idea of my life. I'm not sure that would make it on. It would maybe be on after the as they roll the credits and they show something that's kind of unrelated to the rest of the show. That might make it onto there. I'm not sure that would be a highlight, but I'm glad I did it nonetheless because it was a very liberating experience, I must say. I would recommend a colonic to, virtually anybody out there. I'm not sure if I would recommend you get interviewed while it happens, but it was a good way for me to get the colonic paid for. So.
Yeah. So you're training for UFC 154 now against Francis Carmont. I didn't know whether I was supposed to pronounce the T or not. I don't know if that's a French name or whatever. But how did you do to train this afternoon and kind of take me through the life of a UFC fighter getting ready to fight a couple months?
If we look at just today, as far as my training goes, I woke up at about 10 o'clock this morning, had a small breakfast, and went to go train at 12 p.m., and lo and behold, somebody had thrown 2 rocks through my window, my car window.
What?
And destroyed it. So I did not make it to the training session at 12. Instead, I had to go get the car window fixed, and that put off my training till about 5 o'clock. I did a boxing session with the skipper, Steve Mays, who is my boxing coach, along with Joe Lozon, Joe Proctor. I know he's done some work with Josh Grisby, so he's got a pretty good stable of guys. I did some boxing work with him for about an hour, and then went to a gym here in Rhode Island called Strikeforce MMA. That's got definitely some of the top heavier guys, heavier weight from 170, 185 and up in the area. We all get together to train there. So we did some sparring tonight with a lot of real good guys. Greg Rebello, who's on The Ultimate Fighter, Mike Campbell, who's in the WEC, a really tough young kid, Brennan Ward. There's just a lot of talent in that gym and in the New England area as a whole. So I train at some places real consistently. Sometimes I go to a couple of other places and get a little bit different look, but New England as a whole is really talented and fortunate enough to get to work with a lot of those guys.
Definitely. Yeah. Are you doing anything specifically to train for Francis Carmont, or are you just going through your normal training regimen?
I've had guys because of his height standing on stilts when I spar with them. Or some of the guys that are a little bit taller, I have them wear high heels. So, that's pretty much the extent of it. Luckily, people probably don't think of this as being a huge deal, but Jason McDonald was 6'3" as well. So fighting 2 guys that are about the same height back to back is definitely a lot better than say if I fought Jason McDonald and then fought Paul Harris or somebody who's real short and then having to go back and fight somebody else again who's tall. That fight kind of segues into this one a little bit. Now, Carmont and McDonald look nothing alike, despite both being training in Canada. But besides that, they're both the same height. So,
speaking of training, man, going back to your fight with
I wanted to apologize for technical difficulties. One of my headsets broke, so I had to do this little dance with technology here and switch things around. But going to your fight with Aaron Simpson way back when, your hands looked amazing, man. Your boxing looked on point. It was crisp. You heard a ton of times, and Goldie was talking about how you trained with Cuban boxers, and I kind of wanted to ask you about that because I never heard anything else after that. Did you go to Cuba? Because I know that's extremely hard to do, or did you just work with Cubans who were boxers?
I smoked a few Cubans. I don't know if that's what they were referring to. No, I went to Cuba for about 3 weeks. I think it was maybe 2 summers ago, maybe 3 summers ago. I don't really remember. But I went to Cuba for about 3 weeks with Marcos Avalon, is one of the guys that helped set it up. He owns Freestyle Fighting Academy in Miami. He's real big on the internet. He's real big on the internet, real popular.
Yeah, I've seen him on the underground. He posts a lot of videos.
Yeah, so he helped set up the trip and invited me probably because he needed some sort of comic relief, is my guess. So I was there with him for 3 weeks, and it was an amazing experience. Just being able to go there. I went there somewhat legally. I'm not really. Somebody else handled the paperwork, so I'm not sure exactly what was said in order for me to go over there. But regardless, I went legally. So.
And how was it working with them, man? Because like I said, your hands looked amazing. Did you just focus a lot on your hands for that trip?
Yeah, for that trip, actually, yes. You know what's actually interesting is that I went there after the fight with Simpson. So whatever work I had done previously, one of the things that in the Aaron Simpson fight, in the first round, I felt like I could have and should have put him away. So I wanted to kind of fine-tune some things with my boxing and get a little bit of a different idea. So maybe some different ideas on how to finish or different combinations or, different distances and ranges and philosophies and stuff. So it was actually after the Aaron Simpson fight that I went to Cuba and fought there. I think they mentioned it during the Patrick Cote which had absolutely no stand-up action in it. So.
That's probably what it was, dude. I just remember your hands being phenomenal in that fight. Maybe
yeah.
It crossed Mars in my brain.
Yeah, that was actually that was due in large part to work I did with this guy named Chris Knuckles, who I swear that's his name, and he's not like a chinchilla, but his name's Chris Knuckles, and he's 0-2 in MMA. He looks like if you took Bart Simpson and turned him into a live-action movie, looks exactly like Bart Simpson would be grown up. But he's real good with coaching and stuff like that. So I'd like to give him a little bit of a prop,
Heck yeah, man. And brought your hands up to a whole nother level. Gotta respect that.
Yeah.
So, Tom, you've been in the UFC since 2008. You've fought 7 guys professionally in the UFC. Who has been the toughest guy to date you've faced in the UFC?
You can look at it a few different ways. I mean, obviously, I think the best guy that I fought was Chris Weidman, just based on, his record, what he's done. I view him kind of as like a boring fighter, and that's probably, I think when we fought, he just kind of put me to sleep a little bit, He's usually so boring, he just puts me to sleep, and that's what happened when I fought him. So, I'd say he's the best guy. I don't know if, physically toughest. I threw everything I had at Joe Dirksen and in the first round, put kind of a beating on him, dropped him twice, and, he's still able to come back and beat me. So, he was, the toughest I've had. But, Chris Weidman's definitely the best guy that I've fought.
Yeah, I was reading through a couple interviews you've done, and someone asked about the Weidman fight, and you were like, "Bother me." What really bothers me is when people ride their bikes in the middle of the road and hold up traffic. Do you have a personal recent experience with idiot bikers on the road?
Well, kind of. Where I live in Providence, Rhode Island, which is It's a city. It's not like a huge city, but there are a lot of bikers, like bicyclers. Not so much like, fat, hairy bikers, but there are a lot of people on bicycles, a lot of hipsters, and there's not like very good bike lanes here. A lot of streets are one-way streets. There's a lot of people on fixie bikes that just hold up traffic, stuff like that. It's one thing to be on a bicycle and be off to the side of the road in the right-hand lane, but sometimes they'll be driving and there'll be people, just like driving in the middle of the lane, like so you can't pass them, and that really peeves me, perturbs me.
You have any other pet peeves you want to share with the audience?
No, I mean, I actually have some peeves with my own pet. One of my cats, Mr. Waffles, is a real prick, and keeps me up at night and bites me and stuff. But I mean, I guess that would be a pet peeve.
Is Mr. Waffles your only pet?
No, my girlfriend and I have two cats. He's one of them, and he's awful.
What is the name of the other cat? Just curious.
The other cat's name is Maddie. It's not quite as cool.
Oh no, I was expecting something like Detective Carl Whiskerson or something.
No. I actually have recently got a tattoo over the summer of a cat with a monocle and a sword and wearing like cufflinks and a suit on my chest. So that'll be a new addition for UFC 154 when I fight. That'll be like something for everybody to look out for. That's really cool. But no, the other cat's doesn't have a really cool name like that.
Mr. Waffles the cat, man, biting you and shit, keeping you up. Maybe you should take the back on Mr. Waffles one of these days. Show him what's up.
I can't catch him. He's out of control. He's got a killer guard, actually. He likes to play guard a lot, throws a lot of up kicks.
A lot of rubber guard. He's been training with Bravo.
Yeah, I don't know. I did come home and catch him smoking some pot one day, but maybe that's where he got it from.
I guess wrapping everything up, we only have a couple more questions. You mentioned you were training with a few guys over in Rhode Island.
Yep.
Are you sticking in Rhode Island to a train, or have you been traveling around a little bit?
Well, I haven't been traveling that much recently. I was down in Florida a couple weeks ago, mostly I had some stuff I need to take care of, like clean out a house that I have down there, and I also like to go down there to Orlando and just make fun of Seth to his face. Seth Petrozelli sometimes. It's kind of hard. I make fun of him a lot, like long distance wise, but it doesn't have the same effect. So sometimes, like probably every couple of months, I like to fly down there, really, really give it to him hard in person, and let him know who's boss. So I was down there, and I got to do some training with him as well. And then actually next week, I am fortunate enough to be part of a contingent of amateur fighters from the United States who are going to Sweden to battle a group of Swedish amateur mixed martial arts fighters. So I'll be doing some training out there in Sweden. And from what I understand, the females in Sweden are tall, so hopefully I can find some that are 6'3", or around 6'3", to punch in the face. But other than that,
all of them.
I'm sorry?
They all look like Gustafson. Alexander Gustafson.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. A lot of people say Swedish women are good looking. Are you trying to say Gustafsson is good looking?
Heck yeah, he's a handsome man.
Is he? Okay. I guess I never really looked at him like that, but yeah, perhaps I can fight some Vikings out there to fight, or fight somebody like Magnus Samuelsson. Maybe he'll want to do some sparring.
The weird thing about Gustafsson, he trains with Dominic Cruz, he fights like Dominic Cruz, and the guy looks exactly like a pale, tall, blonde version of Dominic Cruz. It's the weirdest thing in the world.
I don't know if that's the weirdest thing in the world. It is strange. The weirdest thing in the world. That's a bold statement.
What do you think is the weirdest thing in the world?
Man, the weirdest thing in the world.
Is it filthy Tom Lawlor?
No, absolutely not. To be honest, I really don't think I'm that strange or weird. I think most people just have, no personalities whatsoever. The weirdest thing in the world would probably be, I don't want to badmouth somebody, but at first I thought like Vanderlei Silva his plastic surgery was the weirdest thing in the world to me. But now I've become kind of accustomed to it. So.
Yes. So, we try and end every interview with a really serious question. And it's been a pretty lighthearted interview so far. We got to end it on a kind of serious note.
I have a feeling that this is tongue in cheek.
Hey,
that it's going to not be a serious question.
Hey, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
You know what? I will be completely honest. I am not a huge fan of ice cream. I will pick a flavor. I'll pick a flavor just because, but I'm not a huge fan of ice cream. I actually recently I like green tea ice cream that's like made out of coconut milk.
Green tea ice cream. That's definitely a first. But John Anik, we actually had him on a few weeks ago. It was the most depressing story I think I've ever heard. We asked him that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm lactose intolerant. My family would all go to Dairy Queen, and everyone would order ice cream, and I'd have to eat a hot dog." So it definitely beats the Anik question or the Anik situation.
Hold on. He's complaining about having to eat a hot dog from Dairy Queen. Those are delicious.
No, next time see him, you should take it up with him.
What's interesting, I think John Anik is actually from Boston, and I'm originally from New England, and maybe it's just the weather up here is not like conducive to eating ice cream all the time. It's kind of a seasonal thing here, so maybe there's something in the water or in the weather up here that makes people not like ice cream.
Yeah, I guess I'm covered in 3 or 4 months a year. Kind of that want to go out and get a cone of ice cream. But, definitely check out Tom at Tom Lawlor. He co-owns JungleOrlando.com. Check out DTS.com, BestFreeTrial.com. You have any more plugs to shoot out?
Definitely check out KOReps.com. Oren Hodak does a great job helping me out with sponsorships and finding me people that somehow want to plaster their logo on me. So definitely check out him. Check out check out my Twitter at Filthy Tom Lawlor. Check out at KOReps on Twitter. You could also check out. We're talking about plugs.
Plug away, my friend. Plug away.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best hair plug.
We'd love to play the MMA podcast, but as Chris and I both extremely poor, unless her bill was something between the range of $5 and $15, I don't think that'd work out.
Yeah, it'd be tough. I guess I'm done.
And thank you so much for coming on. You're easily one of the funniest guests we've ever had, and we wish you very well in your November fight at UFC 154, man.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it a lot, and thanks to all my fans out there. I love all 8 of you, and thank you very much.
That's about how many people are listening, so that was actually a pretty accurate statement. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, thank you.
All right, that was Tom Lawlor. Always really interesting. You kind of got to think on your feet with a guy like Tom, because you throw out anything, you really got to be prepared for any sort of answer. You ask him to talk about plugs, he'll talk about plugs. you mention something's the weirdest thing ever, and he'll think out what actually is the weirdest thing ever. That is definitely a funny dude.
The weirdest thing I'm thinking about is the grappling match between he and Mr. Waffle.
I'd love to see Tom Lawlor grapple a cat. That would be, or I mean, I guess I've technically already seen that, but
I guess it's not the first time we've seen him pound some pussy. But either way, we're just not going to go there.
Either way, we thought about going there on an interview. Couldn't really think of a way to eloquently broach the topic, but yeah, definitely fun having him on. And sorry about the technical difficulties. Chris is kind of going to have subpar audio. We'll definitely have him back at full quality next week. But I guess everyone's just going to have to fucking deal with it for the rest of this episode.
Don't worry, guys. We'll have our producer on post correct the audio issues at a later time.
We will definitely do that. And send any hate mail to the MMA Podcast at gmail.com to tell us how much you hated the audio quality of half of the podcast.
And make sure to hashtag Mr. Waffles.
Hashtag Mr. Waffles. Maybe we can get that going with all 8 of our listeners, which actually, he was actually probably pretty damn accurate. But yeah, we kind of just broached directly into the Tom Lawlor interview. I spoke with him last week, and he said he'd like to do it as early as possible because the man stays up late, the man trains late. So yeah, I mean, it's, especially for a guy who has an upcoming fight. He fights, I believe it's November. Yeah, it's November 17th. He fights Francis Carmont at UFC 154. So, especially for a guy who's training, busy, fights in 2 months, really honored to have him on the podcast, and hope to have him on again, just like every single guest we've had before. Everyone we've spoken to has been a class act. Actually, everyone we've spoken to thus far has been an absolute gentleman. But I won't be able to say that in about an hour after we interview Miesha Tate. It's going to be our first, not only our first guest, but our first female caller ever to the MMA Podcast.
And our first champion.
Our first champion as well. At least in a major promotion. I think Bart Palashevsky had a championship in some other lower league, but definitely, being a premier champion, Strikeforce is the top women's MMA league, is the top MMA league, and yeah, really cool. Have fun. She had a really exciting hit against Julie Ed's last birthday. We're going to talk to her about that. Talk to her about that. Talk to her about stuff. And we're on actually 15 minutes at the top of the next hour. But yeah, so I guess in these 15 minutes, you want to get right into the news? Let's do the news. Man, I don't know what it is. It seemed like first episode the songs would sound a little weird, but now I'll play our intro or I'll play the news intro. Everything's just cut up. I don't know if I should. Yeah, we are so cut up. But yeah, I guess the biggest news of the week came yesterday. Within an hour of each other, Jose Aldo and Rampage Jackson, who were the main and the co-main on UFC 153, both have to back out of the card due to injury. God, this is, Dana White's life just keeps getting crazier and crazier. I was gonna say worse and worse, but it's kind of hard. Even though he is busy as hell, it's kind of hard to paint him in the light, have a bad life. Dude definitely has a great life. But yeah, what do you think about these injuries, man?
It's getting to the point now where it's comedic. Because at first it's like, all right, well there might be, and while you're in it, you can't really tell. And then as soon as the trend just continues. continues to, what would you call it? Truncate a word?
I believe truncate is a word. I don't know the definition. We'll go ahead and say the trend continues to truncate.
Okay.
Yeah.
It continues to just get worse and worse and worse, and ultimately it's the fact that they have so many cards, so many people on the roster, and maybe I think they put too much stock into their roster. They thought that the roster could hold up any pay-per-view at any time, and they're starting to realize that when all these more talent, that nobody's going to want to buy it, and it just continues to get worse and worse. And ultimately, I think they need to make super fights, and they need to stop making free cards like Shogun versus Bear versus 47, which is Shogun versus Bonnar like 2. They need to put those free cards and switch them with the pay-per-views, I think, because they're just making really weak pay-per-views, and all the free cards seem to be
more, man. Yeah, it seems, front row Brian, I believe, was the one who this morning was talking about this is what happens when you focus on trying to have more happy cards and you're not really worried about bolstering up your lineup some. It seems like guys like Bibiano Fernandez were really open to the idea that the UFC just wasn't interested in putting up the kind of money that he wanted. And, now we're kind of starting to see, like, man, but at the same exact time, he does have an amazing roster, although it's definitely a issue with these injuries kind of taking away from the clout of each pay-per-view card. Yeah, it's kind of like you just said, it's kind of a comedic thing now. It's so absolutely ridiculous that Henderson's dropped out, Aldo and Rampage both dropped at the last minute. I have my fingers crossed that no one at UFC 152 the Saturday after next ends up getting axed from the roster. But UFC 152, we're definitely going to break that card down next Wednesday, which, thank God, we haven't broken down a card in forever. It's actually going to be a pretty amazing card. The pay-per-view has 5 very exciting fights for you. With Cub Swanson, Charles Oliveira. To start off, we have the return of Matt the Hammer Hamill against Roger Hollett. And those top 3 fights, Jesus Christ, those are all going to be some amazing fights. We have Bisping versus Stan, the inaugural flyweight championship, Joseph Benavidez versus Demetrius Johnson, and John Jones versus Vitor Belfort. What is your favorite fight on that entire main card?
Oh, man. I'm going to have to go with simply for the fact that it's going to be a great test to see where Stan really is in the division. Bisping said that he's a great fighter with knockout power, but he's always failed against stiff competition. Got finished by Chael Sonnen pretty in dominating fashion, and he hasn't really beat anyone besides Chris Leben in the middleweight division. That's really anything to get home of. So I'm not that. And
it wouldn't hurt to see what, and once again we apologize for the audio difficulties we're having.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I changed any.
And Yeah, you're cutting out again. You finished it saying you were really looking forward to something. Maybe try and switch back to the mic you had before, because this is worse than it was to begin with. So I'll riff a little bit. Maybe you can switch back to the mic you were using. Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you, buddy. But let's fix these issues in the next few minutes before we get Miesha Tate on. We can have a good interview there. I'm really pumped up for the inaugural flyweight championship between Joseph Benavidez and Demetrius Johnson. Johnson's look spectacular. He just beat Ian McCall. What's that? 7 fights. He only has 1 loss, and that's to the champion, a weight class above him, in Dominic Cruz. So Johnson really looks like a stud, but most people think Joseph Benavidez is gonna win the fight. He's the favorite to take this flyweight champion, and we back, Chris.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Oh my Jesus, that sounds so amazing. Oh, thank the Lord. That
I'm gonna rant for a little bit. Honestly, I think dude, because we're talking and it seems you guys were cutting up for me when I was on both of these things every probably minute. So
really?
It's blog talk, bro.
Yeah, we may be try to find a broadcast live in the future. Obviously, we'll keep you up to date on the MMA podcast. I actually spoke with Blog Talk, and they were a little compassionate and sympathetic to what happened last week. But I told them, stop. I was irate because we have listeners that we more than likely lost last week because Blog Talk Radio cut out on us. And they offered to us a month free, but at the same time, we're not just gonna put up with a free month just to get horrible quality. So we'll see what exactly happens there. I'm not really exactly sure what our future for live podcasting will be. We'll definitely bring you a live podcast. If you have any suggestions, we check our Twitter and email all of the time. So really, it's not one of those things where if you tweet at us or email us, we'll never get back to you. 9 times out of 10, actually, I'd say 99 times out of 100, we'll get back to you. And the 1 out of 100 is just if you tweet us, hey, you guys suck. Which case, we will probably just.
But we'll still love that guy because his parents still love him.
I love the guy who says I suck. But I'm really looking forward to UFC 152. I don't want to get too in depth on that card because we're going to be breaking it down next week. Hopefully with much better audio quality, but. We're going to bring you that next week. Another fight announcement. We were talking about UFC 153 being canceled, or not being canceled. I'm used to saying stuff getting canceled because UFC 151, but Aldo and Rampage both injured, but a fight that wasn't now for 53, the return of Big Dog after that gruesome submission loss against Frank Mir, where Frank Mir torqued his arm, broke his arm, and he's actually going to come back to fight Dave Herman. What do you see playing out in that fight, man?
Man, can you hear me first?
Oh my God, you are crystal clear. I'm loving it.
I'm loving it. Yeah, Big Nog. He's an enigma. I mean, he's done so many wars that, clean victory and Brennan job, and then got his arm broke by Frank. But Frank and I fight as well. So I think he's still got it. He's still training at the highest level, but the question is, can he continue doing this, especially after that kind of a recovery from such a devastating injury? And then you have Dave Herman, who in a lot of and is John Olav and loses by TKO and KO to Stefan Struve and Big Country, respectively. So he's a big guy. He's 6'6", maybe 6'7". He's got some featuring the match, and it's really going to prove where these guys belong. If they get into a war and it goes to a decision, then maybe they both stay. But I feel that if Herman loses this fight, then he's probably out. And if this fight, you're going to hear a lot of talk about him retiring. Hello.
That was operator error there. I just had my microphone on mute. So speaking of I'm looking at the official fight card. Wow. I guess this is serious. It looks like I just popped open the UFC 153 Wikipedia, and it looks like Glover Teixeira is going to be fighting Fabio Maldonado in the co-main, and you know who's going to be fighting in the main card for UFC 153?
The one we were just talking about?
Anderson Silva.
Woo!
Anderson Silva is going to be going to have his third fight at light heavyweight, and he's going to fight alongside tough standout Stephan Bonnar. It's going to be Anderson Silva versus Stephan Bonnar for UFC 153.
Wait,
and
this is Wikipedia.
There's a news source on MMA Junkie, and it actually is appearing in UFC Today. This story came out about 30 minutes ago. USA Today Sports, I'll quote it word for word out of the article. USA Today Sports has confirmed with company officials that UFC middleweight champion Anderson Silva is moving up to 200 pounds to meet Stephan Bonnar in a 3-round main event of the UFC 153 event, which takes place October 13th at Rio de Janeiro's HSBC Arena. Wow, that's Stephan Bonnar is a valiant man. Gutsy move. I thought he hinted at retiring a while back, but I guess his last fight was almost a year ago. It was a decision win. Guys coming off 3 straight wins at 205. He beat Krzysztof Soshinsky, Igor Pekrajic, and Kyle Kingsbury. Soshinsky by finish KO 2 rounds in, and Pekrajic and Kingsbury were both decisions. It's gonna be really interesting seeing him fight Anderson Silva. We've seen Anderson Silva fight twice, 205 pounds, and both got dismantled. But Stephan Bonnar isn't a guy you just dismantle, and John Jones fought him. John Jones couldn't even finish Bonnar. Jones went to a decision with Bonnar in January of 2009 at UFC 94. Wow, this is literally breaking since we've gone live. It's going to be Anderson Silva versus Stephan Bonnar to headline UFC 153, and that really gives us probably the biggest sticking point to talk about UFC 153. I would have been kicking myself in the ass all day if I had missed this until after the podcast went dead. I guess this is a good lesson to not just stick to the run sheet whenever you're doing a radio show. But we have Silva Bonnar. Yep, and we are at the top of the hour, so Miesha Tate should be calling in any minute now. I'll definitely be keeping my eye on the studio for that. Yeah, I guess until she calls up, we have this to talk about. The UFC 153 main card, like I mentioned, in about a month, October 13th. It actually, I was a little disappointed when Aldo and Rampage backed out. It's like, man, this is, it's not really going to be that great of a card. But honestly, when you look at the depth of it, it's going to be a really great card. The prelims have great fighters like they have Hani Jason, Diego Brandao, Gleison Tibau, Gabriel Gonzalez, Luis Kane. But yeah, that main card, 6 really solid fights. You have Damian Maia versus Rick Story, Phil Davis versus
You mean
Did I get a tongue twister there? Torm Arnold. That's my favorite actor in True Lies. Yeah, you have Eric Silva versus John Fish, like we mentioned before, Big Nog versus Dave Herman, and the main and the co-event, Glover Teixeira versus Fabio Maldonado. It originally was going to be an all Brazil versus USA card when it was Jose Aldo versus Frankie Edgar, but we will have one fight where it's Brazilian versus Brazilian and Glover Teixeira versus Fabio Maldonado. Glover Teixeira would have been the favorite in either one of those fights, which if you're a favorite against Rampage Jackson, you're throwing some leather. He's probably, he and Gustafsson are the biggest up-and-coming prospects. Glover's obviously more exciting than Alexander Gustafsson. Gustafsson's fought to a lot of decisions, whereas Glover Teixeira, we've seen some nasty finishes. And talk about nasty finishes, everyone who is everyone in the MMA community was thinking that Anderson Silva was waiting on the shelf, waiting to see what happened with GSP versus Carlos Condit, and it sounds like he's really a company man. I'm sure Dana White was scrambling to find a new guy or guys to fight on the UFC 153 main event. Anderson fought just two months ago in July against Chael Sonnen. Obviously he won that fight by TKO in the second round. But this fight against Stephan Bonnar, it's a thing. I mentioned it last week or maybe the week before. We'd never really seen Anderson Silva go out of his way and say anything bad about John Jones. In fact, it was the opposite. He would go out of his way to speak praises of John Jones and say that he never wanted to fight John Jones. But after this whole UFC 151 fiasco with John Jones not backing out, but refusing to accept last-minute fight on 8 days' notice against Chael Sonnen, Anderson almost uncharacteristically spoke out against Jones, saying he would have taken the fight, saying that even though it's well known that Vitor Belfort's a long-time rival of Silva and they haven't always gotten along the best, Silva said he was going to be rooting for Belfort, so basically against his quote-unquote friend John Jones. I think this, if really there's anything to extrapolate from it, it's that Jones wants to move up to 205 pounds, and maybe he wants to run at John Jones now. Who knows?
It's incredible. I understand that Anderson was going to take the rest of the year off after that Chael fight. He said he needed time to recover or, a surgery or something like that. And now this is coming up. Much respect that Bonnar was, that he'd rather be a broadcaster at this point and he was probably going to retire. As far as this fight goes and my with it, I definitely have Anderson. I think Stephan is going to look pretty good. I think pretty seriously. But if you look at Stephan's last two fights, they were very uninspired. The fight with Igor Krajec was an absolute. It was horrible. It was just Stephen laying on him, and then just very much of the same. Just wasn't eager. He was focusing can bring some to both guys. Actually, saving the card, and especially Anderson, who, like you said, he's jumped it and go. In the gap where others left, where others left it, UFC 153, it's just going to be real interesting, and I think that's a very interesting fight, and that's what the UFC needs, interesting fights. Not don't want Stephen Bonnar, Anderson Silva will definitely bring out the best in each other, and I can't wait to see what happens with that.
Yeah, definitely. Anderson is, he is widely regarded as not only the greatest fighter in UFC history, not only this fighter in MMA history. A lot of people really hold that Anderson Silva is the best fighter in any sport, give it karate, boxing, MMA. There is no one who has looked as dominant as Anderson Silva has looked in recent fights against guys like Forrest Griffin, James Irvin, Yushin Okami, Vitor Belfort, going back to both Rich Franklin fights, his Chris Lieben fight, obviously, which is, I think, the only fight in major fight promotion history, not only UFC, but big boxing promotions. I think it's the only fight in major fighting history that a single fighter had 100% accuracy for the entire fight, and obviously that's taking out the fights where you flash one punch knockouts. But Stephen Bonnar is not one of these guys who's just gonna lay back and be dominated. You look at his losses, and the guy has never been finished. He's lost by TKO twice to Lyoto Machida, actually back at Jungle Fight 1 in 2003, but that was because of a cut, and the doctor waved that fight off. The same exact thing with the Krzysztof Soshinsky fight. That was by a cut as well. His other 5 career losses have all come by decision, and notingly, which all of them to great fighters, John Jones included, 2 to Forrest Griffin, which
Rashad Evans.
Rashad Evans and Mark Coleman, who are all legends of the sport, which Bonnar himself is arguably a legend of the sport, if not for anything, but for that famed UFC 1 finale that everyone from Dana White to Joe Rogan, and all of that, a lot of people think of that as the most historically relevant fight in MMA history. Oh, we just got a tweet. Actually, we just got a tweet. See, if Tom Lawlor is going to tweet at us, then we have to get our listeners to tweet at us live, and we do read all of our tweets live on air. Tom said, was just on the MMA podcast. Thanks for having me on. Fine, gents. It was my pleasure. And it always solid. Yeah, it always kind of boggles me when fighters thank us and say, my pleasure. Like, no, man, you're taking me a time out of training. This is what we do. This is why we set up the podcast. Just so we could interview fighters and... Sorry, I'm talking over you.
Thank you on Twitter coming on, and he said, my pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, you may want to adjust your mic. I understand what you were saying. It was really a crazy thing when Anna came on and was like, oh yeah, anytime guys, anytime. She joked with me and saying something like, I think he shot a hashtag of lactose intolerant. Yeah, it's really great to have one. Miesha should be calling in any minute now, but I'm definitely getting my eye on the studio call-in board, so whenever she calls in, we'll patch her in immediately. If not, which we have had mix-ups with guys like Robert Drysdale. So if we can't get her on, we'll have her on next week. But betting on her calling in. We got 50 more minutes to play, which we plan on all 50 and not being capped with that like Blog Talk Radio did to us last week. I'm still resentful of that. But yeah, Anderson Silva, I almost feel like we could talk the rest of the night about this stylistic matchup. You think after this fight against Stephan Bonnar, I mean, which direction did they go? Because everyone was hinting at Anderson dropping weight for his next fight. It's pretty much been decided by both camps. DSP has said not gonna at 185 pounds. The Silva camp's been a little hesitant to say anything about the possibilities of Silva dropping all the way down to welterweight. So it's probably going to be at a catch weight, somewhere between 170 and 185. Most likely it'll be on 75, 80. We all know UFC likes to do their weight bouts in angle of 10 or 5 other to see Anderson Silva's next fight, which his camp even and we're back. Sorry about that brief cutout. You there, Chris? Cool. Yeah, I actually I decided to roll the dice. We're not only having problems with the Blog Talk Radio client, but my own internet cuts out from time to time, which isn't really conducive to hosting a podcast. But I figured, you know what, the rough audio may partly be because I'm bumming off my downstairs neighbor's free wireless internet connection. So I rolled. We do this for you. I'm stealing internet, but I'm back to using the internet, which is sad when you steal your neighbor's internet, even though you pay for internet, because your neighbor's unprotected signal, which is all the way through a layer of flooring, is more dependable than the one you pay $30 a month for. But
this is all hypothetical. Jake Walters is not stealing
this
internet.
is hypothetical. I would never steal internet or pirate any sort of events. I'm just digging myself in a hole here. Yeah, but actually let me bury you. I don't. I think I just got put on watch lists by all sorts of NDAA piracy, whoever checks for piracy. I don't really know. I think I just dropped out a random law that President Obama passed that has nothing to do with piracy.
By the way, you sound better now than you have in the last hour.
Do I? Nice. And it looks like we have a caller. Let me bring it in.
I'm going to follow you then.
Hey, is this Miesha?
Yes, this is.
Hey, what's up? Thank you so much for calling in. We really appreciate you taking out your time to come on and chat MMA with us.
For sure. No problem.
Yeah, we actually were just talking about a news story that dropped literally 20 or 30 minutes ago. I don't know how much you follow the UFC, but did you hear that Anderson Silva just hopped on this UFC 153 card to fight Stephan Bonnar at light heavyweight?
No, I didn't actually.
Yeah.
As much as I love the sport, I'm probably not as hardcore of a fan as a lot of people out there because I'm busy trying to win my own fights, but that is really cool.
Definitely. Speaking of your own fights, you had a legendary fight on your birthday, actually, about a month ago. That fight against Julie Kedzie was really, really incredible, roaring back in the third round and winning by armbar. I'm going back a little bit before the fight. You were trained at High Elevation in Washington. Training, is that something you plan on doing in the future for your upcoming fights?
Yeah, I think so. I think it has its advantages, and I think as a professional athlete, you always have to look for a way to get an edge, and I was aware that, her elevation was a little higher than mine, being in New Mexico and whatnot, so I figured, that it could only benefit me to add that to my training as well.
Definitely. So, I read you trained in Washington State at a high elevation. Where exactly did you train there? Most people think high elevation, and they think about going to a Colorado, out where Dave Herman trains and all of that. Did you go and spar on top of a mountain or something, or what did you?
Basically, yeah. Actually, it's kind of funny that you say that, but yeah, basically that's what I did. We actually went on a camp trip as a team, and those of us that were fighting obviously didn't drink and party and whatnot. We went to sleep and we'd wake up in the morning, we'd go for a run, and then a little later in the day we'd hit mitts or drill, spar, whatnot, those kinds of things. Swimming was another big thing. So yeah, we just went up, and what's really good about that is then you're not just going up there for, a couple of hours and coming back down and not really getting the full benefit of altitude training. You're actually sleeping in the altitude, so that's when you get the most benefit of gaining more red blood cells, and that's the benefit that you get of altitude training. So that's the goal behind it. So yeah, we spent about 3 or 4 days up there, and it was very peaceful, kind of away from everything. I was away from my phone, and we just trained.
Wow, being away from your phone. My phone will die, when I have an hour or two left at work, and I have major anxiety issues if it's dead for like an hour or two. How is that like being with zero phone signal and really no contact with the outside world for so long?
And it's weird at first, and it's funny that you say that because I'm the exact same way. If my phone dies because it doesn't have any battery, I'm like totally anxiety full. I'm just like, man, I need my phone. I got to find a plug-in. I got to, But if I know that I'm going somewhere and the goal is to shut out the world, then I'm just like, I'm just going to turn the phone off, and I'm prepared for that, I guess. So I have to kind of prepare myself. Otherwise, yeah, if my phone dies and I'm driving somewhere or I'm doing something, I'm like, gotta have my phone. It's probably my biggest vice, other than cupcakes.
Yeah, which we'll definitely get into your nickname change in a second. But before we do that, you mentioned you went up there with a few other people. Obviously, you've trained with Alpha Male a little bit in the past. Who'd you travel up there with to train at high elevation?
Well, my coach, Rich Guerin, his wife, my boyfriend, Brian Caraway, obviously, and then we have a lot of really tough, up-and-coming pros and amateurs on our team that I really believe are going to make quite a name for themselves. If I say the name now, people are probably not really going to know who they are unless, they're local fans of the area. We have Julian Arosa. We have, he's 8-0 as a pro and was also undefeated as an amateur. Really amazing, fights at 145. I think the UFC is probably going to be taking a close look at him really soon. Just very talented and awesome person too. Great personality. And also we have we have so many good guys. We also have Chelsea Bailey. She actually just moved away because she got a full ride scholarship to Oklahoma City University, and she's a wrestler, and she's an absolute badass. And she's a little smaller than I am, but her wrestling is amazing, and so I had the pleasure of training with her for this training camp. Also Chaz Jordan, really tough kid coming up. Also Gustavo Lopez, probably one of our biggest fans, and also just a phenomenal wrestler. Got a scholarship to Menlo College, and I mean there's I could keep on naming them, but those are the ones that I have worked with the most, and so I definitely owe a lot of thanks to them for being behind me and my team and just supporting me.
Hey, Miesha, this is Chris, the co-host here, and I just want to say it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I got some butterflies going on right now. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. I have so many questions, but let me just try and focus here. Team Alpha Male, they're known as just amazing wrestlers that have improved their striking. You got Joby One Kenobi, you got Faber, you got all these guys, Dillashaw. What's it like in the practice room when you guys just, go to war? Because I would have to imagine it gets pretty intense, people guillotining each other. I just kind of wanted to get some insight to that practice room.
Well, I actually don't train there anymore, but I haven't been there for over a year now, almost a year anyways, and but I mean, when I was there, it was awesome. You know, they have a certain kind of energy that's hardly matched in any other gym that I've been to. You know, they're definitely very family oriented. You know, it doesn't feel like you know, like you're in there to work necessarily. I mean, you are, but it doesn't have that heavy feeling. You know, it's very lighthearted, and everyone works really hard. That's understood before you even step on the mat, that, you know, the goal there is to work hard and push each other to be the best. But, you know, they're always cracking jokes, and, you know, a really fun group of guys to be around. So, you know, it was an awesome experience. And, you know, anyone who gets a chance to cross-train there or anything like that, they're more than welcoming. So, I mean, it's just a great group of guys and a good atmosphere of training. They work hard.
That's awesome. That's good to hear, because I've always thought that those guys, you know, look really cool. And kind of moving past that, though, let's kind of step back and go back in time. You have some pretty awesome, you know, wrestling credentials and grappling credentials, and I kind of just wanted to ask you what got you into it in the first place, because I know that, you know, you're a real outdoorsy girl. They showed that in the Strikeforce, you know, the show that ran up to your fight with Rousey. You know, you said you like to be outside and, you know, do boy things or whatever, but what got you into grappling in the first place?
Well, I started wrestling when I was 15, and I was in high school. That was my freshman year of high school, and the reason I started that was simply because I wanted to do a sport, but the only other sport that was offered was basketball, and I had no interest in playing basketball because I suck at it, and I wasn't even going to try to go out because I was pretty sure the C team would have cut me. So I was like, basketball is just not my sport. Basketball has no love for me, and vice versa. So wrestling it was, you know, and I was the only girl that was there all 4 years consistently. You know, we had other girls come in and out, but, you know, I was there every day all 4 years, and I loved it, and it was awesome. And, you know, it was purely coincidental that I went out for it. Like I said, it was actually out of default. It was like, well, there's nothing else to do, so I guess I'll go out for wrestling. And it was so hard that I found it really appealing. That was very tough. It was the toughest thing I'd ever done, and so it gained my interest. And I was like, you know, this is really, really tough, and I'm not very good at it. So I'm going to do my best to become better at it. So it kind of caught me off guard how much I loved it, and I lived for that every season, you know, that I couldn't wait every year for wrestling to come around. When I graduated high school, I went to Central Washington University, and I was looking for something to kind of fill the void, and I stumbled across this mixed martial arts club sport online, and I wasn't too interested, to be honest. I was like, you know, I don't know about that. And then my next door neighbor was like, hey, you know, her name was Rosalia. She's like, oh, I went yesterday to this club sport, you know, mixed martial arts, yada yada. But it was, you know, she was wearing like a karate outfit, and I was like, there's no way I'm doing karate. I'm not putting on one of those things. Like, no offense, but like that was seriously what was going through my mind. I was like, I am not doing that. Like, I'm used to a singlet, and I'm not putting on. I'm not doing it.
I don't blame you. Doing like, kiosks.
Yeah, you know, and so she was like, no, she's like, trust me, you got to go with me. No one else is, you know, it's not karate. That's just my background, so I wear the outfit, and you know, most of the guys there are, you know, former wrestlers, and, you know, you'll fit right in, trust me. So I was like, fine. So I went reluctantly, dragging my feet to this first practice, and, you know, I was very pleasantly surprised. And I was like, wow, you know, it is actually, you know, everyone's just really cool, and that's where I met Brian. He was actually, you know, kind of instructing there. He was a student there as well, but he was teaching, you know. He was already professional at that point, so he was helping a lot of the new recruits. So they had come down from from the mixed martial arts school, the actual school where the fighters were at, and since they were college students as well, they decided to put this program together to try to get more recruits, you know, so they could get more people up to spar and more fighters and grow a team. So when I made my way in there, I had no interest in fighting at all. I didn't know what it was, and I'd never seen it. I didn't know what the UFC was. I mean, this is 6 years ago, and I didn't know what it was, except I knew that people got punched in the face, and that didn't sound appealing to me. So I said, I just think I want to learn the submission aspect of it. You know, I wrestled in high school, so teach me how to do this chokehold over here and this submission over there, and that's how I started. then I watched my first fight card, and I was, like, blown away at what I saw. You know, it wasn't, you know, in my ignorance, I judged the sport before I really got to know it, and I thought it was, you know, going to be gruesome and this blood sport and terrible and all these things, and I just was like, typical girl, I don't want to get punched in the face. That sounds horrible. Well, when I saw it, you know, in all of its glory, I realized that it was nothing, it could be nothing further. You know, I thought it was really beautiful, actually, and I thought the amount of passion and everything that they left out there on the mat was so inspiring that it inspired me to want to do the same thing. And so, again, the stars aligned for the third time in my life, and the referee at the end of that fight card, you know, I watched Brian fight on the card. I watched all the other guys that I had been working with just on grappling. I hadn't done any sparring at that point. Referee announces, hey, I'm having an all-female fight card on the intercom, and he goes, if there's any women interested, you know, it's going to be 3 weeks from now. Please make your way up here and give me your information. So I did. I made my way up there, and I said, hey, I want to do this. And he said, all right, and 3 weeks later I was fighting.
Wow, yeah. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was just going to say that was a really pure way of getting into it, how you did wrestling and you just so happened to get into it, and you'd never watched a fight, and then all of a sudden you fight. That's a really cool story.
It's crazy because none of it was planned. You know, it's not like I really ever thought growing up that I was going to be a fighter. You know, I'd never been in a street fight. I was never a violent person per se, but I was an extreme competitor and always very competitive. Most of my friends were boys. Growing up, you know, I was very outdoorsy. I climbed everything that imaginable. If I thought I could climb it, I would. And so, you know, just a little bit of a daredevil, too. And so I went out for wrestling, and I felt right at home, and I think that was the perfect in for me to start the sport of MMA. And, you know, those opportunities fell into my lap, and fortunately I took advantage of it, and, you know, here I am today. And I don't know, you know, I think God has just kind of blessed me in a way.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go back to your debut in November '07. It was a tournament where you actually won your first fight and lost your second fight, and I think it's really interesting seeing some of the best fighters out there actually have lost some of their debut fights. Renan Barão lost his first fight. Anderson Silva actually lost his third fight, and you lost your second pro MMA fight. What was it like having to move past that and refocus on climbing to the top of women's MMA?
Well, at that point, again, I didn't know that there was a top to women's MMA. It was so limited. There was really no foreseeable, you know, favorable future, honestly. It was take what you can get. You fight up weights, you fight down weights, you fight people with a lot more experience, you fight people with a lot less experience, you fight bar brawlers to professional fight. I mean, it was all over the grid. I mean, my first year, actually, I was amateur, and I was fortunate enough to be amateur. Some girls that started as long ago as I didn't have that opportunity. They went straight into the pro because there was not even enough women to make an amateur division, so they just turned pro right off the bat. But I had 6 amateur fights. I was 5-1, and my very first amateur fight was a loss as well. I fought Liz Posner. She went professional and had a decently successful career as a pro, and then she started her family and everything, and I haven't really heard much of her since. But she was a Muay Thai specialist, and at that point, like I said, I had 3 weeks to learn stand-up. You know, I mean, you don't learn how to strike in 3 weeks. It's just not realistic. But I did have the wrestling background. You know, I won the first round. Second round, I went out. I tried to shoot in. She put me in a Thai clinch. Had no idea what that was. So I didn't know how to defend it if my life depended on it, but I kept shooting in, and she kneed me in the face twice. She broke my nose. There's blood everywhere. You know, she kind of pushed me down and got my back, and I was kind of regrouping as blood was just pooling in front of my face, you know, and I was like, what the hell is going on right now? That's kind of what I was thinking in my head. You know, I was like, wow. I was like, this is really, this is nothing like wrestling, and wow. So I decided that either I could quit or I could keep fighting, and I was like, well, to hell with that. I'm definitely not going to quit. You know, I'm still awake and I'm still breathing, so she's going to get her butt kicked. And I bucked her off, and she slid down into the guard position, and I stood up above her, and I was on my tippy toes reaching for the sky and just raining down bombs. And that's how the end of the second round ended, and there was blood everywhere, all over me, all over her, and my nose was twice the size by the end of the second round. And my corner didn't let me go back out for the third because my nose was broken and I wasn't getting paid and there was no insurance, and, it was just kind of a no-brainer at that point, I guess. But it was a learning experience. And I definitely didn't want to quit there, although I think a lot of my family and everyone thought, well, thank God she learned her lesson. She's not gonna want to do that again. There's no way. But in the back of my mind, I knew that wasn't all that I had to give, and I was frustrated. And I decided, there's only one way to get unfrustrated, and that's to pick myself back up and put myself back in there and get better at it. And that's what I tried to do. So then I went on to turning pro about a year later, and I fought twice. I won my first fight, which was a grueling battle between Jan Finney and myself. We fought not only 3 rounds, but there was no commission or any sanctioning, and they couldn't decide who had won. She was the favorite, supposed to win the whole tournament, and so they had us go a 4th round. At the end of the 4th round, they were still kind of, like, I'm not sure whether, this or that, or I should win the fight or she should win the fight. And so they were going to have us go a 5th round, and both of us were like, heck no, because one of us has to fight again, One of us has to fight in a few more minutes. So they had the referee pick the winner. And hold on one second.
Wow.
What, the ref was the judge?
Wow, yeah. I think we'll...
And so he picked me, and then I went on to fight Caitlin Young about 20 minutes later, and Caitlin was fortunate enough to have a person that I believe had no experience fighting, and she finished her in like 18 seconds. And I had Jan Finney, who, you know what I mean?
And yeah, I think we may have lost her. We'll see if she can maybe...
No, I lost service when I went back. I know, but we're supposed to leave forever, though. I saw it.
No, get down. Bad for it.
Hello? Hey, yes. Sorry about that, Miesha. Blog Talk Radio. This is the 2nd straight week we've had technical issues, and this is going to be the last time we use Blog Talk Radio to do a episode. And that was they literally just cut us off, even though both Chris and my internet was fine. But yeah, you were talking about Caitlin Young had just fought a kind of a no-name. I'm looking now and really had no damage going into that fight against you in the semifinals. I guess it was of that Bodog fight women's Grand Prix.
Yes, and what's funny is on my record they don't even have the 4th round recorded because it technically shouldn't have gone a 4th round between Jan and I. And you can't even find the 4th round out there. But ask her. We both did. We fought hard and. At the time she was known as the hardest hitting woman in MMA, and we all saw her fight Cyborg. She's a really tough girl. For my pro debut, it was a tough fight, and we battled. She got some really solid leg kicks in there, and we were just, really going at it. And I had a tough weight cut as well, and it was just, but that's the thing. That's what happens when you fight tournaments. It's no fault of Caitlin's or anyone else's. I just happened to luck of the draw. I got Jan Finney as my first fight, and we had an absolute war, and I was tired. And going into the second fight, not having much time or anyone regulating it, really telling you, they needed, this much downtime. We were right back in there fighting, and I was tired, And so if I ever get a chance to fight Caitlin Young again, I would definitely welcome that.
Definitely. Yeah, you were talking about going into the third round of that crazy pro debut of yours, which kind of transitions perfectly into my next question. Your last fight, this past month, you roared back in the third round against Julie Kedzie. Kind of take us into that fight and what was going through your mind going into that final third round where you ultimately won by submission with about 90 seconds left in the fight.
Well, that was a very strange fight for me. It's not like any other fight that I've ever been in or experienced, in that I didn't feel like I was mentally all there. My heart is really big for the sport, and I never want to give up. I really truly feel that there will never be a situation that I'll quit. I'll never. I'm just not that way. But going into the fight, I didn't have the same fire and desire and hunger that I have had in all my previous bouts. And, I'm not quite sure. I can't quite put a finger on it, but, I think part of it has to do with, the fact that I really had to push myself to be able to come back so quick, after such a devastating injury. When I fought Ronda, tearing everything in my arm and, all that, I really had to work hard. I came back at the same time that Ronda and Sarah Kaufman did, but yet I was the one that was, supposedly put out with an injury, so I thought that was a lot of work in itself, not to mention, the training camp and just being able to get back to fight condition, and then be able to go out there and actually put a show on one of the best women, so, going into that fight, I felt weird. If I was like, I'm hoping, if I get hit that it'll wake me up, and it didn't, it just kind of felt flat. I, felt a little lackluster. I was thrilled to get the submission at the end of the round because up until that point, it was pretty back and forth.
Yeah, I remember reading an article after that fight where you said that you wanted to take some time and figure stuff out. You said basically verbatim what you just told us. I was just wondering if that's something that you're sticking with right now. Are you taking time to refine your focus and rededicate yourself?
I believe she dropped out. She's not in the studio any longer.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if that's on her end. It says we're connected with her, but honestly, anyone, if this is a lesson to you, let it be a lesson. This is going to be our last time using Blog Talk Radio. We've had issues with it in the past and kind of thought, if it's only a one-time thing, maybe we can move past it. But it cut us off early last week. I'm shocked that this is the kind of service you get when you pay for, you're paying $39 a month to have a live streaming client, and then it just kind of shits on you. So hopefully Miesha can call back in. I'll tweet at her, and maybe it's
should we really try and get her back in, or try and reschedule?
I have my eye on the client. The studio client. We'll see what exactly happens with that.
We're sorry, Miesha. It was a great conversation, and we apologize for this.
Yeah. I'm typing out a tweet. I'm not like a guitarist who can play the guitar and sing at the same time.
No problem. I'll take.
Wait, no, she's actually called back in. Yeah, we're really sorry about this issue we're having with Blog Talk Radio. We actually were just saying this is certainly the last time we try and use it. We've actually this is our 12th episode. The first 10 episodes went off without a hitch, and last week it cut our episode 30 minutes short, and this week it's cutting you out, it's cutting us out. So we really apologize, and hopefully if we have you on anytime in the future, we're using a much more reliable client. But Chris, I guess I'll let you take back over to ask what you were asking before we got cut off.
No worries, guys. And I'm on a cell phone connection, too, so, part of it could be that.
I'm sorry, Miesha. I'm sorry. What exactly was I asking, by the way? There was so much emotion.
You were asking, just a couple days after the fight, you were on the MMA Hour with Ariel and said the same thing.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Miesha, you said you wanted to regroup, refocus, etc. And I just wanted to know if that's something that you're sticking to right now. Are you taking time off and just doing different things with training or just relaxing? I just wanted to kind of get some insight behind that, because a lot of people, including myself, are wondering if this is going to be something permanent, which I hope not, or if you just need some time to yourself.
Well, there's one thing in life I've learned is there's really no way to predict the future, but from my insight, I don't feel that it's going to be permanent, but it is something that I'm asking myself a lot of questions. It's something that I've never experienced, and I think that as a fighter, you go through different phases where you love the sport. Sometimes you hate the sport. Sometimes you're just complacent. Sometimes you're bored. Sometimes, you go through all these different motions and feelings, and, I don't believe that I'm the first one to feel this way, but maybe one of the first to openly admit it, that I feel a little off. I don't feel, as hungry as I was at one point, and I don't like that. I want to really want the fights and have that passion, and have the desire, and have the fire, and just feel that burn in me. And this last fight, I just didn't feel that way, and that's the truth of it. And I think that the fight was really exciting for fans. I think it was a great fight, but for me, my performance personally, and what was or actually lack thereof was going on inside of my head, was not right, and I didn't like it, and I don't ever want to feel that way again. And so I want to take the time to figure out, and take the time to not only ask myself questions, but get the answers to those questions. And so I am going to take some time off, and I'm going to find a way to light a fire under my ass again and go back after my title, because that's ultimately what I want back. I want that back, and I think, having Ronda be the title holder to me is a little frustrating at this point. But, she took the title from me, and there's nothing that I can do about that except get back in there. There's no point in complaining about it. There's no point in talking any smack or anything like that. You know what I mean? She rightfully took it. She beat me. I'll shake her hand for that. But do I want it back? Yeah. Do I want to fight her again? Absolutely. But I have to be in the right frame of mind to do that, and so I want to take some time to really get my grappling sharp. I've been working some grappling technique. But other than that, I've just been kind of chilling. And when I found before when I take a little time off, sometimes that's exactly what I need to miss the sport again. Just like a relationship. If you spend so much time around someone all the time, it tends to get a little dry sometimes, or you never miss them. And sometimes it's nice to miss something that you love so much. And I think that's where I'm at.
Well, that is not only well put, and I understand where you're coming from, but I just kind of wanted to let you know that about 3 years ago, I was watching Strikeforce, and I caught one of your fights. I caught one of Cyborg's fights, and as a guy watching the sport, and I'd been into it a couple of years, I didn't really like MMA, to be honest. It wasn't something I liked. I didn't like seeing, beautiful girls punching themselves in the face, or women, but over the years it's women like you, and it's women like Carano, Kedzie, all of them that have really changed my mind. You guys are fierce competitors, you're fighters, and you're athletes, and as a selfish fan, I honestly would love to see you come back, and if you decide to not come back, then I completely, I understand, as a human being, I get it. You have to have that fire, and, I'm babbling at this point, so please come back if you can.
No, I hear you, though, and that's the thing. It is a dangerous sport, and I'm not one of those people that likes to enter the cage without fire and passion, because I think that you can get hurt that way, or you can lose fights, stupid fights, and I just think I've been through a lot, emotionally and physically over these last 6 months. It wasn't easy losing my title to Ronda, and it sure as hell wasn't easy having my arm damn near ripped off, and then, having to face that. And then, the rehab, the amount of work that went into that, I was so busy focusing on my physical state that I think that emotionally I kind of suffered a little bit for that, and I need to get back on the horse. But the only way to do that, I feel, for me is not necessarily to take a step forward at this point. Sometimes you just got to take a step back in life and regroup and say, hang on a second, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? I got to figure this out, and I have to be true to myself, and so I just want to let the fans and everyone know exactly what I'm going through and what I'm feeling, and I know there's going to be haters out there who are going to hate and say, oh, I'm scared to fight Ronda again, whatever, you guys can talk crap. Like, I'm not scared to fight her, trust me. I wasn't scared the first time, and even after the armbar and whatnot, I'm even less afraid of it now, to be honest. I think as a fighter, that's one thing I've never had, and that's fear. I'm not afraid to get in there and do what I love to do. I'm afraid to not love it anymore, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just trying to keep my passion alive. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do. I'm taking a step back instead of a step forward in order to take a step forward.
Definitely, yeah. Like, someone who would say that obviously didn't watch the fight, because every single one of Ronda Rousey's fights except yours has been a completely one-sided affair. And that fight you had, it was back and forth. You had her in trouble, she had you in trouble. That was definitely a close fight, and I kind of think, other than the Cyborg fight, probably as far as opponents go for Ronda Rousey, people would want to see a rematch with you and her, especially after she just went through Sarah Kaufman in under a minute this past month. And that's something I kind of wanted to touch on, a hypothetical fight with Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg. You've definitely been one of the more outspoken people, getting women's MMA out there, spreading it to fans and whatnot. But speaking about Ronda Rousey versus Chris Cyborg, do you think that's the answer to get fans and, more importantly, UFC brass more into women's MMA?
Well, I don't think the future of women's MMA really rides on any one woman's shoulders at this point. I think the answer to it really is to prove that there's depth. A lot of people are so sure that there's just not enough women out there, including Dana himself. But, I'm really happy to see Invicta, one of the only all-pro female fight show that's really giving women an opportunity to get exposure, is helping to prove that that's wrong. There's Sarah McMahon out there, there's Shayna Baszler, there's Liz Carmouche, there's a lot of girls, even Marloes Coenen, that are chomping at the bit. It's just people assume that they're not there because they're not in the forefront or in the main public eye, but it couldn't be further from the truth. There's a lot of really talented women out there that would love a shot at Ronda, and I don't think that Chris is the only solution to that, but people are curious to see what would happen, when one of the two of the best women get a chance to fight each other, and especially her dropping the weight and coming off of the PED conviction and all this stuff. There's so many things, so many factors to consider that it's really hard to say, like, what would happen? Hypothetically, what would hapen? Like, who knows, but that's what's so awesome about MMA, is there's really no way to predict that, It's like boxing, for instance, most of the times you kind of know who's going to win and you kind of know who's not, who's the better boxer, who's not. But stylistically in MMA, it's so diverse that when you get two athletes together, that are so highly skilled in different areas or even the same areas, it's like, man, how do you know who's going to win? What kind of factors are going to affect Cyborg if she drops to 135? How is that going to affect her performance as a fighter? And, how would Ronda Rousey deal with that kind of pure raw strength and aggression? Who really knows? It's a fight I would love to see happen at some point. But, as far as me getting a second shot, I definitely still feel that I'm deserving of that, and at some point, I would like to fight Ronda again, whether it's for the title or not, whether she's still the champion or not, I still want my shot. I want a second shot at Ronda Rousey, because I know that I was too emotional for that fight, and I can also admit that, and my own fault, She won that battle in my head, I think, before we ever fought, and I didn't realize it at the time. At the time I didn't think that it was affecting me. I thought it would be motivation, and it was. I mean, I went out there and fought really hard, but I fought too emotional, and I was too overzealous. And I think that's what lets me being caught. I am a high-level grappler. I feel I'm one of the best women in the world on the ground, and I'm not afraid to throw on the feet. And I have a little bit of wrestling to back that up as well. And I think that showed when I fought Ronda. When we hit the ground, it was not, she didn't just take me down and armbar me like she's done everyone else. We went almost outside the first round. I'm the only woman to take her outside a minute. I'm the only woman to defend one of her arm bars, and I think if I go in there with half my wit with me, next time it would be a different story.
That's so true.
Definitely, yeah, very, very honest. We're, I guess, kind of winding down here. Only have a couple questions left, mainly about dessert foods. You used to be known as Miesha Takedown Tate, and you changed it to Cupcake before your last fight. And would you like to take our listeners into why you chose Cupcake as your new moniker?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple things. One is because I just love cupcakes. I mean, I think they're awesome in every way possible. Anyone who doesn't love a cupcake is no friend of mine. But also kind of the more like moral of the story behind that was early on in my professional career and even part of my amateur career, a lot of girls would see me and say, basically they talk behind my back or they call me out and they'd say, she's just a pretty face, or there's no way like she could beat me. She doesn't take the sport serious. She's way too girly. Because I carried myself as feminine, and that was always, just part of who I was. I'm proud to be a woman, and I'm proud to be, a fighter and a competitor and then all of the above. So I have all those aspects, but a cupcake, generally speaking, is a term for someone who is, is a can or a pushover or an easy fight, So, I would get that kind of assessment by a lot of the other female fighters before I really got a name for myself. They thought it was kind of a cupcake, and they'd call me out and say, hey, I want to fight that girl. I want to, I'll beat her. She thinks she's so cute, or she thinks she's this or whatever, which couldn't be further from the truth. I was just being myself, and, I would get called out, and I'd show up, and I'd fight, and I'd win the fight, but I thought, to me, how comical, you don't judge a book by its cover, and so, now I gladly embrace the name Cupcake.
I thought you just liked cupcakes, to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought you just liked frosted dessert treats.
Well, that's true, too. I am a bit of a guru. I go around, seriously, everywhere that I travel. You can ask Brian. Sometimes it drives me crazy. Everywhere that I go, I have to find a bakery that's popular. Usually I'll ask my fans, that are in that area, whether it's Chicago or San Diego or wherever I'm traveling to. I have to try a cupcake from that area. I'm a bit of a cupcake connoisseur. And I love it. I love cupcakes. They make me happy. So, I guess they just kind of went hand in hand. And I think it made for an awesome nickname for myself. I agree. My slogan now is that I'm dangerously sweet. So.
Oh, ayo. So our last question, we ask all of our guests this. It's a very serious question, Miesha. I hope you're ready for this. This is very deep.
I'm ready.
This is some Oprah shit. This is Oprah shit. You ready?
All right.
All right. What is Miesha Tate's favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, my gosh. You got to bring up the big guns.
That's what we do here at the MMA Podcast.
My favorite ice cream flavor, I love a really, really good strawberry ice cream, but not the pink kind, not the one that's like got the fake flavor. I'm talking about the one that's like white ice cream and then it has like strawberries just mixed in there, like real fresh, like good strawberries. It's one of my favorites. It's all time. It's a safe flavor. I love it. And I also love butter pecan, but I'm a strawberry girl. I love strawberries, and yeah, sounds good. You guys make me hungry.
I guess we would be kind of remiss to also not ask, what is your favorite flavor of cupcake?
Oh my gosh, I love caramels. I love, and actually just a really good vanilla cupcake. Sometimes the simpler, the better. Sometimes they get a little too crazy and it's too sweet or too much this way. I love a good, solid vanilla cupcake.
That's very Charlie Brenneman-esque. He said his favorite ice cream flavor is vanilla.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's good to play it safe.
Yeah, but Miesha, thank you so much for putting up with the little technical difficulties we had in the middle there. It was really interesting hearing about your history in MMA and your current state in the sport as well. You have any plugs or sponsors you want to shout out? Definitely follow Miesha at Miesha Tate on Twitter. I believe that's MIESHATATE.
That would be right. Yes, please give me a follow on Twitter. I always appreciate my fans, and I really love you guys. I try to give a lot back to you guys, and I always want to know what you guys are thinking and what you want to see more of. So, yeah, give me a follow. And, I'd also really like to give a shout-out to BFG.Inc. They are a financial group that is just an awesome couple they have been not only really, really great people to work with, but, awesome sponsors. I really appreciate that. Curtis & Co. Company, watch company, Toyo Tires, super proud to be a Team Toyo athlete, the only Team Toyo athlete that's a female, so I proudly embrace that. Discount Lumber, I have a few other ones that I might not be thinking of, so I'm sorry. Love you guys, too. But I'm drawing a brain fart right now, so. And last but not least, I would like to continue to bring awareness to autism awareness. It's something that I've chosen to take on as, something that I guess is kind of close to home to me. I live in a household where my coach and my coach's wife have a son who is autistic. He's 15 years old. And he's very interesting, and I really enjoy conversating with him, if you want to call it that. He's a goofball, but he brings a lot of light to all of our lives, and they're just such cool people. As I began learning more and more about autism, the more intrigued I am with it, and I feel sorry that there's a lot of children out there that suffer for all different degrees of autism, and either the parents don't know or the schools don't know and they're not being diagnosed, or even if they are, people are so unfamiliar on how to work with them and the way that their brain works in social atmospheres, they're just very different. And so I guess I'm just trying to help raise awareness for that. So Autism Speaks is the group that I work with, and it's a good cause, so give them a follow on Twitter as well. Look them up on the internet and take some time to learn about autism.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely check them out. And once again, Miesha, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you, Miesha.
For sure. Thanks, guys.
Have a great evening.
You too.
And
bye.
And that was Miesha Tate, which we actually we're getting this barking in our ear. The podcast is coming close to an end, so we are sending it out now. Chris, what'd you learn today?
I learned today that Miesha Tate, nicknamed Cupcake, means that her opponents underestimated her, and it's not a delicious treat.
Of all the deep things we heard in that Miesha Tate interview, I kind of feel bad to choose this as the thing I learned today. But Tom Lawlor's cat is named Mr. Waffles. That's awesome. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. And for Chris, this is Jake. We hope you tune in next week. And until then, we gone.
We gone.
I live my life.